I can say he's arrogant and loves to belittle his opponents.
Magnus, I remember, said that Gukesh is an underdog.
I can say he's childish.
Hitting the table when he lost against Gukesh the first time.
I can say he forgets who's watching.
He's an idol. As an idol, you don't want to show bad example.
But I'd never say he's not the best to ever play the game. And today you'll see exactly why. One of his positional masterpieces against the reigning world champion. Magnus wanted revenge after losing twice to the same kid. And he made sure he got it. We are skipping the opening to jump right where it gets interesting. Take a close look. Magnus just played h3. It asks black, keep the pin or give up the bishop pair. Now the bishop drops back to h5. Notice that white hasn't castled yet. That favors idea of pushing these pawns to worsen black's bishop and prepare to storm the enemy king. So Gukesh took on f3 and then played bishop e7 to stop white from doubling pawns on the f-file. Magnus exchanged another pair of minor pieces, which seems routine, but with black's rigid pawn structure, the knight is just far better than the bishop. That's the position. Now Marco will take you through what came next.
First thing Magnus played here is g3. Why g3? He wants to put the pawns on dark squares to limit dark square bishop, but not only that. He wants to provoke in some moment h4 and g4, and then black needs to do something. Maybe g6, maybe g5, we will see something to confront those pawns, because white wants to take more space on the king side. With the knight here, or with the knight from this place, he can jump on f5. Then he can continue to attack, because when he puts the knight on f5, nobody can move that knight. After g6, we will capture the pawn, especially if the queen is here, so it's not enough if he defends that with the king. So, the bishop is practically unuseful for such position.
Then black played queen d7, and white responded with h4.
Bishop e7, to put the bishop on c5, and then to push f5. Then he will open file for his rook. But there is a big minus or big negative side about that idea, and that is the square on e4. Once when the knight jump on e4 after f5 and we exchange here on f5, nobody can move that knight from e4. And that is the problem with that idea.
We can maybe go back to this pawn structure issue. If the pawns of black wouldn't be doubled on the c file, but let's imagine one on d6 instead of on c6, this whole thing with the knight on e4 wouldn't work.
Yeah,
okay?
Definitely. Magnus castle here. So bishop c5, then king g2. Bishop d4, and now the question for our viewers. Should we trade the knight for the... Should we leave the knight on c3 and then probably we can expect that black trade that? Or maybe just to move the knight from that place? So probably the best place for the knight for now is on e2 with idea g4, knight g3 and knight f5. Again, we want to avoid to exchange. This is our crucial advantage. Knight versus the bishop. If we exchange that, we don't have anymore any advantage at this position. So we should keep our knight alive.
Maybe Gukesh was thinking knight e1 is next, and then maybe c3 for white to kick away the bishop, and then it basically provides a target for black, the pawn on d3.
Yeah.
Plus the knight from d1 is not able to really go anywhere. I mean, you can go to e3, but then the bishop takes. So all the ideas of black are actually going well. Getting the target to attack, trading the bishop for the knight.
Marco thought that Gukesh could have done something better.
Maybe before bishop d4, he should try with b5. Now he's really threatening to play bishop d4.
Because after knight e2, he can take
he can take the pawn.
Puts the pawns on the light squares and lets the dark square bishop stay active.
I can't understand Gukesh how he chose to play here bishop d4, and after knight e2, he played bishop b6. So he practically lost one tempo here.
We had g4 by white, and black responded with g6 to cover the f5 square.
Now knight g3, logical move, nothing special. We want to play h5 in the future. We will see with rook h1, that could be really strong attack on h6 pawn. Queen e7, maybe to attack the pawn, maybe also to cover dark squares. Rook h1 to defend it, and we are preparing h5 in the future.
So in case of h5 and black's response g5, you're getting what for white?
You ask me or our audience?
Just to clarify
creating
this.
the whole on f5.
I should mention something Marco pointed out during our analysis. When your opponent has only dark square bishop, the light squares become your target.
So rook d8, okay, he wants to develop, not only to develop the rook, he wants to play rook d6 and then rook f6, which is a strong attack on only weakness in this position. And then
a4, a strong idea in this position.
Idea here is a5. Black needs to stop that. So a6 or a5. If you put the pawn on a5, it looks like that this pawn is on perfect place. He's also taking some space and the bishop will stay there. But for some endgame, when we put the knight on c4, you can't move the bishop from that place because of this pawn. And I can support that idea with rook a3, rook b3. And you will lose the pawn.
Stopping at a6 would have given the bishop a hideout on a7. Of course, the b7 pawn turns a bit weak, but still, nothing dramatic.
So queen e2, idea with that move is to put a queen on d2 and you will try to look with your queen on both sides. Pawn on h6 definitely is weak, pawn on a5 with combination with your knight could be potential weakness.
Black played rook d6 and white followed with queen d2.
So king g7 to defend the pawn, h5, we want to capture that pawn on h6 and nobody can stop that. I mean, he needs to offer the exchange with the queens. Magnus accepts that, of course, h takes and we move the knight from g3. His mission was over on the king side. Now, promised position for him is on c4. We can see this pawn is weak, this pawn is weak. And we have space to, if we need that rook, to increase attack.
Computer says it's equal, but that doesn't help much if black has to find 10 perfect moves in a row. The real problem is dealing with the threat of knight d2 c4. Ideally, black wants to push b6 to protect a5. But where does the bishop go? If it moves up to c5, white can chase it with knight d2 b3. So the best try was bishop d4, aiming to provoke c3, which weakens the d-pawn. Or maybe to provoke b3, which would give the bishop more freedom in the dark squares.
Rook f6, of course he wants to capture this, but this is nothing. We will play f3. Rook f4.
The idea is to create counterplay with f5. That's why Carlsen chose to trade pawns on g6 here.
There is like almost only move f take g6 because of the outpost on f5 mainly. And we created one more pair of weak pawns.
One more pawn island. And after that, surprising move. Probably everyone who is on top level should know that now you need to keep your pieces alive. Why? Because the pieces can defend your weak pawn structure. But Gukesh offered the exchange with the rooks. Strategically speaking, this is awful move. After we exchange that, practically position is over because we will just focus on his weaknesses here. So after knight e2, he's forced to play rook f6. Just on time he will defend this pawn. But who will defend here?
White changes direction here. No rook a3, rook b3, because after rook a3, bishop c5, and then b6. Now that's good enough to stop rook a3, rook b3 plan, but what about rook b1 followed by b4?
When we exchange that, something will follow.
Okay.
So he decided to play c5 to stop b4, but now when the diagonal is closed, okay, first he gave check here, because the rook is not useful anymore on b file, king g7, okay, he improved a little bit position of that king, but the king is completely stuck there. He can't go on f6 to protect that or to give some support to his rook, because he will let white rook to enter 7th rank or maybe 8th rank, we will see, maybe even 8th rank is better rook b8 than rook b7. So he needs to close that with the king on g7, and then king f2, we want to improve position of the king, we will see, king was so important in this game. Then bishop a7. So now the question, why Black played here bishop a7 and he gave his pawn on a5. Magnus took that pawn, but why he gave that pawn?
If Black had gone for rook e8 instead, trying to just wait, White brings the king over and shifts the rook via a1, a3 and b3. And that breaks Black's position.
Bishop a7, we capture the pawn. Okay, he tried to be active here with c4. We move the king, of course. Now, we can capture with the pawn, but definitely this is worse move. I expected White capture here with the king, and then one unpleasant check here. If you return the king, you will be passive. Probably there is some counterattack with this move. And he decided to play king c4 here. Brilliant move. He can't play king c3 because of check, and then you are in difficult situation. How to defend this pawn? I mean, if you go here, you will lose that pawn. And also he is protecting that pawn. So king c4 here. What a nice move. He wants to be active with the king. And on the other side, this rook is not doing too much. He's controlling this file, but nothing. The pawn here is hanging on b7, so he needs to do something. You can't play b6 because of the bishop. How to activate after that the bishop?
So after rook d2?
I think first something like this. So you will be forced to move the rook here, and then I can play rook h3. Maybe you can check just to bring the bishop up. I will play king b3. And after b6 I can bring the knight here, and again I have perfect position. I can kick your bishop to take your pawn.
So even though Black gets the second rank, there is
nothing. There is no coordination with the pieces.
Okay.
So king c4 was in the game, then rook a6, active move. But then again, I mean, we have already one pawn more, we grab another pawn. Okay, he returns one, but perfect position to continue. Now the best move here is of course b4.
Yeah, you have pawn majority, you want to
you want to push them, and for endgame this is perfect time to push the pawns. Rook a6, and now we switch the side with the rook, so we can see how powerful was the rook on h file. Now he's on d file. The king can't prevent that because he's totally on different side. Rook c6 check, king on b3, and after bishop d4, one more perfect move. Probably 90% of players will just push the pawn, but you can do something about this bishop here on d4. You can play rook d3 with idea c3, and you will kick the bishop.
Yeah, you don't want to create an outpost for it, you want to move it away.
Yeah, definitely. And again, you don't want to give your opponent any chance. For example, if we put the pawn on c4 now, we can't switch the rook on a file. So it will be difficult for White to continue this game.
Okay.
King f6, c3, bishop f2, and now we put the rook on 7th rank.
When someone sees how bad their position is, they often stop paying attention to the details. Gukesh was no exception there. He played rook b6, missing something big. Let's see what.
Magnus didn't play here knight d8. I think this is the best move. Unstoppable checkmate here on f7. He just grabbed the pawn, which is also good here. You have two passed pawns, so nobody can stop that. So after rook c7, Black resigned the game.
This game really shows the classic battle between bishop and a knight, where Black's pawn structure is just a bit restricted. No drama, no complication, just old school chess at its finest. But Magnus had a surprise up his sleeve, calling this game rubbish. Because unlike flashy tactical battles, it's all about quiet, precise play.
Yeah, I think the game itself was kind of rubbish.
Just so you know, Marco is offering a free 30-minute lesson if you want to work on your chess. Check the details in the description below.